Good afternoon, everybody. So glad that you could join us again today. We are going live again with some different strategies about supporting teachers with the remote learning in using GradeCam. So it's been quite a few resources that we've shared over the past about 4 weeks. Mostly we've focused on the student portal. So we're just kind of opening up some additional options that are available, or not opening, but making you aware of some other options out there, mostly because we are in a totally different learning world right now and how we can best support our students. And we have such a variety of students and their needs. And so we're just really showing that flexibility of GradeCam so that how it can meet your needs as a teacher with your own teaching strategies, as well as the learning needs of your students. So like I said, for about the last 4 weeks, we've talked a lot about Student Portal. We've shared how Student Portal is available to everybody right now, and this gives you a digital option for collecting student responses and getting the information using the same GradeCam powers and the forms that you can now have that with students, and taking that a step further in a variety of form types that we've shared with you. All those are recorded and available on the group, so please share those out to other teacher friends you've got, or join our group if you'd like to join us live. That just gives you an opportunity to share any questions or ideas that you have along with it. So after talking about Portal, and then we went into projects and performance-based assessments, and we've also talked about the data and everything that you're bringing back is so wonderfully, is we also want to make sure we're touching on those needs of students that kind of might need that paper still, because there are different types of learners out there, and how remote scanning can help you support all types of learners in that hybrid learning environment. A lot of schools and districts and teachers that we've been talking to have had the experience of working with both students that are fully online and some students that are still receiving paper packets, and you have a mix of both, but you want to make sure you're fully supporting all of your students without having to make them do double work by doing something on paper and then turning around and submitting it digitally. So we want to make sure we give you both options out there to support that hybrid learning. Also, we don't want to give you more work, so if you're collecting 2 different types of forms, you want them all to come back to the same place so you can make your instructional decisions moving forward, and give you less work so it's all there together. And then the other is this just provides options to the students and what helps them learn best, or what's going to provide them with the most support. To use my personal case scenarios, I have a student learner at home, and she had both the digital and paper option, and I actually took in the paper option mostly because we decided to focus in on a skill, her handwriting, which can only be done on paper. I needed her to be able to work on her handwriting skills, and I can't do that in a digital environment. But I didn't want to make her, I'm already struggling with getting work done, I didn't want to make her do double work by doing it once on paper and turning around and having to do it digital. So I really like the option of having a paper option without giving the teacher more work, without giving myself more work, but I want to make sure she's still getting the same learning opportunities as those students who are doing it on digital. So GradeCam does an amazing job of bringing that together so you can help yourself and help your students. So we're going to talk about remote scanning and what that can look like for you. So if you still want to do that paper option, it's still there. So first off, share forms to students. How can we share these forms to students, and what should those forms look like? Like I said, in the past, most teachers who have probably been using GradeCam have done the paper forms. The Student Portal became new to you. But now let's think back a little bit as if you were introduced to Student Portal, how can I use the forms, or how can I support those other types of learners? So we have different ways of setting up these forms so that you can lay them out for students. One is to create a generic form, and that just makes it the easiest on you, that if you are sending home like a variety of packets, or if you want to post one form to your Google Classroom that the students can download and then write on, you can use a generic form, so it doesn't matter who picks it up, and then they'll designate their student ID, or their GradeCam ID on there to determine the tie of where it's going to go back to. You can also print student-specific forms. So sometimes for real young learners, and particularly for parents, they may not know their GradeCam ID. So if it's more helpful to them to give them a specific form, that can be helpful where their name is already on it. And so we'll kind of distinguish between the two and the ideas that you have there. The other thing is to place that paper option right inside the portal. So if you are already using Student Portal, but again, like using the example of my daughter, that I just need her to write things or to draw it out or show her work, maybe you you want them to draw a chart, you can put a paper option right inside the portal so that they can do that by hand, and then they submit that form to you later so they could do the grading a little bit different. Again, it's just laying options out there. And actually doing some research about the AP and how the AP testing in College Boards is coming out is they do provide the option that if a student wants to handwrite their response, they can. And that may work for some students better than typing up their response. They do have the ability to type, or they can handwrite their response and take a picture and submit it. Isn't that cool? Giving the options out there. So just kind of opening up that. So let me pop on over here to GradeCam just to kind of show you what this looks like. You can see me on camera again. So when you're in a regular GradeCam form, we've been talking about this before and in the past, is how can you create those generic forms, or just kind of a retouch on how do you get those. So I'm in my assignment here and I just go over to Forms. From here, you have the option to choose to print this only for this assignment or a compatible key. Now, typically, I usually like to talk about the compatible key because that means I can use the same form and laminate it and use it over and over again. But in this case, I would recommend keeping it as only for this assignment. And let me show you why. So notice here right now, I'm in showing. If I switch it to compatible key, I lose my title. Now, that isn't necessarily a bad thing, but if you are sending home multiple forms, like we pick up a packet for the week and I may have multiple forms for my kid, but with that, I don't know which form goes to what, and I'm just a parent. I don't know exactly which one I need to. There's a room for error there. So by leaving that specific, it goes straight, they know exactly what the title is, and it can match exactly with the assignment that you've given them, so you don't have a mix-up if there's multiple forms. Also, this specific form is going to come in handy later when we actually come back and scan those. So you're going to kind of know that being specific is probably going to be a little bit better in this case, opposed to trying to do the compatible forms. Next, you can do generic, and this is kind of like I said where it starts, and the generic form actually creates this space where students will write in their own GradeCam ID. Now, some students know their GradeCam ID by heart, maybe their lunch ID, their student ID, so it's very similar or very familiar to them, and they can type that in very easily. So you can just leave this open. This makes it so that if you want to print 20 copies of this, you can print 20 copies. What designated it being to that student is when they type in their GradeCam ID. So with that in mind, is you want to make sure that you choose the right number of slots that your student IDs have. So if your student IDs are 6 digits long, make sure you select 6. If it's only 5, you can bring it down to 5 or change that number as you need to, and it will adjust this accordingly. So printing that generic allows you to copy as many as you want, and it's not changed until the student puts in their own ID. So the change from this is if I want to just kind of save a little bit of time or help my parents and my students out by not worrying them about what student ID they have, is you can print specific for them. So here where it says print generic, I'm going to select on it and I'm going to choose my class. Once I select my class, I have students will get pre-filled of all of them. So if I hit this, it's actually going to generate my whole class of forms. So it's going to be 20 kids in the class. So there's going to be 20 forms there, all specific to every student. But if I want to go to specific students in that class, hey, are you not coming up? Oops, it's not getting my specific students right now. Excuse me. Let me jump out of that real quick. See if I can get this to reload. Well, it should come up with a list, and I'm not sure why we're not seeing the list. Maybe something is slowly loading today, since now I'm also generating this Facebook Live, so sometimes there's a little bit of a lag. So let me just do a quick refresh to see if that works. But then you can select your specific students by sending it out, just like if you only need to get 2 or 3 students there, you can send it right to them. So I'm having a little bit of a lag here, so we'll see if we can get caught up. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna, let's see if this comes in this time. Yep, it's having a problem getting with my internet. So it might be with the lag, and I'll show you that here in a second. But I'm gonna go ahead and jump on over to how you can put your paper generic form inside of the portal, so that when a student goes into the portal assignment, they have the option to take the test right there digitally, or to print off the generic one that they can use. So if you're going to do that, again, make sure it's specific. You can choose your class if you would like, or if you just want to print generic for any class, and then make sure you have the correct number of digits available. Once you've done that, you just want to hit generate and download that PDF. So this is, like I said, a generic form, meaning anybody can take it and fill in the information, and it doesn't designate who the student is until the GradeCam ID is filled in. So if you're going to go ahead and get that, and we're going to download, I'm going to save this as fractions, pretest, generic. If I do that, then I can come back later and I'm going to attach this right into the portal. So come back over here. I'm in my assignment and I want to go to the student portal options because I want to double check what my settings are here. One, make sure you have the class added and the correct window. And then while it's available, you want to make sure that you have the ability to show and allow download of those documents because we're going to place that generic form in the document. So we have to make sure that we allow it to download. Hit save. Now I'm going to attach my generic form. So I hit attachments, upload, choose the correct form, open, and then check the box to make sure it shows up in the portal. So that way will be available into the portal. So this is what the student will see. Let me jump out and show you the student. Hopefully we can keep this going here. All right, so I just did a quick refresh to make sure it got the saves that I put in. So this is the student, they've already logged into the portal, this is their test. So we've talked a lot about how you can take these tests right here. Here's the test, I fill in the answers and go from there. But maybe if I am that student that really needs the ability to work those math problems, and if I was a teacher, maybe I wanna see how they work those math problems, I wanna give them the ability to download that form. So they actually have that generic form is right here, and I have the ability to download. If I don't hit turn in, I can just leave this window and come back later if I want to take it digitally. So if I download that form, I can actually download it, fill it out, do the test, do everything I need to do, and then either come back to the digital one and submit it, or I can show you how we're going to collect those forms later and they can actually just submit the paper form itself in its own way. But just giving students that generic form right there in there gives them the alternative that if they need a different type of test. All right. So that is just how your student goes out to your students. Next, we're going to collect the forms. And I had the quotations on there because I know that that's a big concern right now with health concerns is you don't necessarily want to get back those papers just because of those health concerns and what you may be aware of with that. So how can you collect your forms without really collecting them? So students have the options that we can bring back for this file scan that I'm going to show you later is one, they can take a picture and convert it to a PDF. Now there were right about 3 or 4 weeks ago, right as everything was kind of blowing up, is there were a ton of resources out there about how you could take a picture and change it to a PDF and send it to your teacher. I will say, so there are a ton of apps out there that can do that on a mobile device, a tablet, or a phone. But I would say the two that I liked, if you have an Apple device, the Notes app is actually really spectacular. Just go into the generic Notes app that is right on your phone and you click on the camera like you're going to take a picture, but then you get the option to scan document. From there you can just send the document from the app. Android, you can use the Google Drive app if you would like. And in there, it's the same way. You hit the plus sign and hit the camera, and then you can scan the document. The Drive app on the Apple doesn't have that functionality. I'm not a developer. I don't know why they did that. But just so you know that those are two great apps and very simplistic on most of those that you may already have available to you. So the students can take a picture of their form. So like I have a form right here. I have my form that I would lay it down and use my phone to scan it as a PDF. From there, you can email it, you could text it, you could put it in some sort of a cloud shared folder, you could submit it on Google Classroom or some other LMS. They're just going to digitally send you the form so you can collect it. If you don't want to have parents or students go through those multiple steps of converting it to a PDF, they can just take a picture. GradeCam can scan those as well. Just a couple tips that as we're looking at those, I just want to show you, you do want to make sure that, let me grab this one. right here, this is about the best one to grab. So I just have an example here of a form that I captured or I scanned. So you want to make sure that you get the full scan area. And what I mean by the full scan area is the barcode or the bubbles that are at the bottom, as well as the name and the title that is at the top of that image. So you want to be able to include all of those items. Also, you don't want to have any real dark shadows. I actually have a shadow right here, and it does pretty good on this scan. It's just if it was really, really dark, sometimes it is a little bit harder to see some of these drawings that are the handwriting or the student written responses in there. So you definitely want to kind of keep that in mind, that if you are going to collect them, you might want to have not so many dark shadows. I actually use the tip is I'll put my form on the floor and I'll hover over it and kind of like use my back as the whole thing as a shadow. That's why it's just seeing it all as one color and not as multiple as the bright and darks, because your phone will actually make those adjustments. Also with that is you don't want to have too much extra. So I purposely posed this one because if you were taking a quick picture, you have some extra things here. That could cause an issue with scanning. It's just something to keep in mind, and we'll see if this one actually scans here in a little bit. It does pretty good most of the time, but every once in a while you just may want to be aware that if you can get just on the outside edge, but don't lose your crop out your name or the barcodes, that way you can keep them all in. So that's how you collect them from your students. We passed them out. Now we're collecting them, Now we're going to scan those images. How I have found this is to be really kind of fascinating in thinking about how we've changed this approach is file scanning has actually been around in GradeCam for quite a while. If you've ever used file scanning before, pop a line down in the comment section because I'd love to hear it. It was originally built with the intent that, say, a teacher had a stack of 100 tests that they had done, they could take that down to their copier scanner in the teacher's lounge, scan that off, and email themselves a file. From there, you take the file, drag it into GradeCam, and it grades those in an instant. It's super speedy. It just saves you from having to hold up 100 pages at 100 pages. So it goes even faster than grading by hand with the camera. So it's always been there, but we've gone in and they add some additional items and checks just to make sure you get all the correct information that you want, and just developing it to make it even easier to use. It does collect a variety of file types, including JPEG, PNG, and PDFs. PDFs do about the best just because they're a more flat image and they're pretty much guaranteed to be in the vertical the way they're supposed to. So that's a pretty good standard, but those JPEGs and those PNGs come over as well. We are going to drag to scan, or you can click the upload icon. I'll show you where those are at. And then we just check for our error messages, because every once in a while, like I said, if something doesn't scan, what can we do to fix it, or how can we still get that information in there? And then I'll share a user tip that came from somebody I talked to earlier this week. So let me come over here to GradeCam. So here in GradeCam, if I am going to drag to scan, what you'll do is you'll go into like your Google Classroom, or you'll go into Drive or email and download those, and you can put them all into a folder. You can place them there on your desktop. You can leave them in the downloads folder, wherever you would like. You can just easily select everything. And so I'm just clicking and dragging to get multiple documents, and I can drag them over like that. Or I can come up here, and this is the file upload icon. And that opens another window that I can drag them over, or you can navigate to specifically where you've saved your files. So I save these here on my desktop. So I can click on the first one, hold shift, and click on the last one. And I can hit different ones here. So I do this, and I hit open, and I can drag those right over. So you'll see as these scan, as you start to see them load, and I can bring in others if I need to while I'm scanning. So I'm still getting my internet error. My poor draggy internet. So it will come over and it'll scan these as we go. What I really like is it does break that down. Oh, I have a problem, so I need to check that one. And it tells me, it says no form could be read. So that's 5732. I'm just going to jump over here and pull that one out because that one's right there. It's going to go through the next one. It usually goes much faster, but like I said, with me being on my live, I may be dragging down my internet. And you can see I've titled these certain ways, so you'll notice how they come across, because I wanted you to note some troubleshooting that you could do. So one is that extra space. We're going to pull that one out. And then the next one we're going to go into, what I actually wanted to show you, this one is the specific. So I said this page is in a different assignment and will not be visible in this list. So it's going to start scanning some of these other ones. If I open this one up, This form does not match the test I'm on. The test I'm on is actually a fractions test, but this is for an English capture. And so they don't match. But since I told you to stay specific on the assignment that you're using, so my title shows up, it knows where to send it. If this wasn't specific, it wouldn't go. So that's why it is kind of another advantage to make sure these are specific assignments. If it's a compatible, you may have 3 or 4 of the same kinds of tests and they may not show up. Okay, so if you have specific examples, it goes there right away. Now I had my last one, it says test reflection sheet. It does not have a form. So actually what's really nice about that is if you accidentally grab other things, like this is one I grabbed on accident, oh, yep, that's not a form, and I can put it away. If you have a document that's multiple pages, you'll see that each one is a quick, like green check, yep, you're good to go. So you get really good feedback on what's available and what worked and did not. So I have 2 up here that I want to double check. So I will say that I had the same form and I tried it on a PC and I didn't have any problems dragging it over. Like I emailed it to myself, I downloaded it on a regular PC computer, and right now I'm working from a Mac. In my Mac, for some reason, it's still seeing this image like it's in a landscape view, so like it's rotated, and that doesn't want to scan. So if I just open it up in preview and come up here to File and Save, and then close it and drag it back over, it'll scan just fine. So there's that 5732. Didn't scan before, but I'm testing it again. And I can bring that in. So you may find that you just need to open it and save it, and that locks the orientation in place so you don't have to, it may be seeing it as sideways where it originally is not. So there it went, just fine. So here's the extra space one. This is another one that I can open up. You can go into your test and maybe open it in any sort of photo or imaging software that you have. Like I said, it has a little bit of a shadow, so I could try to convert it, or I may just try to crop it down initially and see if that works. Let me crop and save and close, and then bring that one in as well. So it really gives you great feedback to see what worked and what did not in that file scanning, but it's all there collected digitally. What's really nice is those results are going to still come in, so I can look at my rubric capture. So if I click on Lucy Lou, so I want to see her results, there's those images right there. So later on down the road, when you want to talk to your students about what they learned or what they write and understanding, did they get the right processes here, I still have an image of their work that I can reference back to and go over again. So these will grade, it will grade these handwritten responses. All of that is really powerful just for the fact of I allowed my student the opportunity to write out their thinking or draw out what they were doing just by pulling it still over into GradeCam. So you're servicing both your paper needs and your digital students there. So one tip that came from a user I talked to earlier this week, and he says what he does is if he has his students take a picture and they just either text him or email him to him, is he just opens that up on his computer screen and uses his phone with the mobile app and just scans it directly off of the computer. Computer screens and phone cameras are getting better and better, so that's just another easy tip that if you want to do that, you can. So like here's an example of that form. I just opened it up full screen. You just want to make sure that you're actually seeing the whole form. You don't want to zoom in so much that part of it's cut off or it won't fully scan. So you want to be out enough that it can see the whole form. Hold your phone up and you can scan it right there on your computer screen, no printing needed. So that was just a great tip from another teacher that we had talked to earlier this week. So again, this is the file scan, and it's really kind of a nice to really continue to support those remote learners if they're using paper and that works better for them. We know that we are in a very hybrid classroom environment. You have a little bit of digital, a little bit of paper, and you have different kinds of learners. So with GradeCam, you can bring that all back to one place. Students get all the same results, that they can look at their grades the same way. They just get to submit in the manner that's going to be most comfortable to them. So I'd love to hear from you guys. Any other ideas that you have? If you've used file scanning, what's that done for you? If you find that you're loving the student portal, what's your big tip to share with some other teachers that are on the group with us as well? So other than that, we'll see you guys next time, and you have a great rest of your week.